So is this a cover-up, and if so, who's leading the cover-up?
Your guess is as good as mine. That's what we're trying to figure out. That's exactly what we're trying to figure out. The Massachusetts, well, certainly the Massachusetts State Police is involved. There are people that were in that house that are involved. Brian Albert is involved. Jennifer McCabe is involved. The rest of the folks that were in that house, there's some level of involvement by every one of them.
So you have a Boston police officer who's found dead on the lawn of a Boston police officer's home. Why was there no search warrant done of that home? Why was there no search for forensic evidence that he entered that home? That would have been done if it were you or me who owned that home.
The dog has been gotten rid of. Got rid of the evidence in the basement. Got rid of the house, the crime scene itself. Your Honor, I would submit to the court that evidence is literally being destroyed right under our nose.
It makes no sense to me. I think it's going to make no sense to a jury.
And I've been saying this from the first time we covered this story, that this defense is extremely aggressive, very competent, and it continues. It absolutely continues. Let me bring in our guest joining us in Boston, Massachusetts. Karen Reed's defense attorney David Yannetti is with us. Also joining us, he's on the other coast in Los Angeles, California. High-profile attorney. You've seen him many times on Court TV, co-counsel for Karen Reed, Alan Jackson. Alan, great to see you again. Great to see you, David, tonight. Let's begin here with something that I'm going to actually say Turtle Boy told us in the prior segment about the snowplow driver. David, how significant is this? Have you spoken to the snowplow driver? And is this the key witness for the defense?
Well, I would say it's one of the key witnesses for the defense. This is no less than bombshell evidence, Vinny. You know, by the prosecution's theory of the case, my client supposedly struck John O'Keefe with her vehicle and left him on the lawn of Brian Albert's property. That would have been at 12:30 a.m. So when the snowplow driver went by to make a pass at 2:30 a.m., when he's checking the sides of the roads to make sure there's nobody there, not even an animal there that he would potentially hit, and he confirms that no body was on that lawn, in our view, this is ball game over.
All right, let me ask you about the other big thing, again, that Turtle Boy mentioned, that was that really struck him and struck all of us here at Court TV, was this Google search. Now, is this going to be a battle inside the courtroom as to when this search was done about a body dying in the cold? Is the prosecution saying this is after the body is discovered, and you guys are saying before? Is this going to be a battle of the experts? What's the status of all this, Alan? Because to me, this is crucial, right?
It is crucial, but to have a battle, you have to have two sides. There are no two sides to this. This doesn't come from us. This comes from Apple. The time of the search comes from Apple core data. In other words, it's not something that can be manipulated. It's not something that needs to be interpreted. It's something that just exists in the world as we know it. The Apple Cocoa core data indicates, or the core time indicates exactly what time that Google search occurred. That time was at 2:27 and 40 seconds in the morning on January 29th. That's 3.5 hours before John O'Keefe's body was found. Why is Jennifer McCabe, one of the parties that was inside the house that night, the sister-in-law of Brian Albert, why was she Google searching? How long does it take for a human body to die in the cold? That's a question that we have posed to the prosecution over and over and over. And the Commonwealth doesn't have an answer for it. So they simply say, oh, well, we think maybe they got the time wrong. Except we didn't come up with the time. And we're using data from Cellebrite, which is the exact same program that the prosecution relies on. Massachusetts prosecutors across the state and prosecutors across the country have relied on for not just years, for decades, to establish guilt and in some cases to establish that the defense uses to establish innocence. It's unfathomable that the prosecution would take the position, well, that timestamp is not right. We know it's right, and that also, to echo what David said, that is another aspect of this case that establishes this game is over. We know what happened inside the house. We just don't know who struck the fatal blow. And the prosecution, it doesn't seem to want to get to the bottom of it. We're trying to.
All right, let's get to the shattered tail light. As Alan was speaking, David, we were watching video, and that's Karen Read's car, right? And what's the significance of this video? And is this where the tail light was actually shattered from your perspective, not during the murder of John O'Keefe?
Yes, there's no doubt that's when the taillight was shattered. And by the way, that's at 5 in the morning, 4.5 hours after it was supposedly shattered the night before. The taillight was intact when she left Brian Albert's house. She came home, and this was Karen leaving to begin the frantic search for John O'Keefe. Now, I don't know that you can see it from the video that you have there, but there is no doubt that when that SUV comes into contact with what is John O'Keefe's vehicle parked in the driveway, you can see that rear tire move forward. Yeah. It rotates, and you also see the light shatter from the taillight being broken. So, their theory is that this happened, 4.5 hours earlier. We can prove it happened 4.5 hours later.
Okay, how about this, Alan Jackson? Is there going to be a paramedic coming inside that courtroom and saying that they heard Karen Read, your client, say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him?
I don't know who's going to come into court and say what. I mean, it's very easy for the prosecution to stand up and make all these sort of grandiose claims, these fanciful claims about what they think the evidence is going to show. I can tell you this. There's going to be no reasonable evidence that she ever confessed to hitting John O'Keefe, because she didn't. Could she have questioned, oh, my God, could I have hit him? That's a reasonable thing for a person in that circumstance to say. It's a reasonable thing for a person in that circumstance to wonder. She's sitting there. The last time she saw John O'Keefe alive, he was stepping out of her car, walking up a driveway, walking into a doorway in a house that she wasn't familiar with. And several hours later, she sees his body outside in the cold, dying. Right, taking his last breath, and she's trying to jump on him, make sure that he gets some warmth in his body. She's trying to give him CPR. Keep in mind, she was absolutely, utterly frantic at that point. Could she have said, could I have hit him? That is a reasonable thing for her to have said. It's a reasonable thing for someone to have overheard. But keep in mind, I don't know what the paramedic's ultimately going to say. Everything that comes from that paramedic is coming through someone that's involved in John O'Keefe's murder. In other words, Jennifer McCabe, others inside the house, they have a connection. They have a relationship with that very same firefighter or that paramedic. That's why this is all very suspect. If the only thing the Commonwealth has to rely on is some supposed statement, oh my gosh, could I have hit him? That's not enough to base a prosecution on. That's desperation. When every single other piece of physical and circumstantial and direct evidence points the exact opposite direction, to the Alberts, to the McCabes, to the people that were inside that house.
David, let me ask you this. We covered the Alec Murdaugh trial, and there was testimony about the movement of cell phones, and it was very specific. Like, it wasn't like it's generally in that area. They were able to track the movement of the cell phone. The prosecution painted a picture of Alec Murdaugh running around the house, pacing around the house, very specific location. What does the cell phone of John O'Keefe tell us in this case? Because to me, if it's all these hours or an hour that he's alive, is he moving in the house? Can you get that type of location information? Are there searches done? Are there calls, text messages? Is he looking things up? Is anything like that happening on his cell phone, which I believe was found underneath his body?
Correct. And that in itself is curious, that it was underneath his body and not in a pocket. But the answer to your question is two-part. Number one, Alan and I have been fighting tooth and nail to get all of the cell phone data that we can. And guess who has fought us back to prevent us from getting that information? It's been the prosecution. They have fought us when we have tried to get the cell phone data of everybody in that house, which they should want to get to the truth.
But John O'Keefe's is the key, right?
You,
I mean, isn't the tech? I mean, we saw it in the Murdaugh trial. This technology can be extremely precise in the location of these cell phones and the movements.
Right. So that's the second answer, or the second part of my answer. That the Apple health data that Alan referenced earlier shows that he did walk, I think, approximately 80 steps and went up and down approximately 3 flights of stairs. You don't do that by getting out of a vehicle and being struck by the vehicle. And I think Alan had said at one point, what did he do? Did he do laps around the car and start jumping up and down and then got hit? It's fanciful. It's ridiculous. We know he went in that house. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there was a witness that saw Karen alone in the vehicle with her hands 10 and 2 on the wheel, and nobody else was around her. This prosecution is a walking zombie. It's dead. The DA's office just doesn't know it yet, or they refuse to acknowledge it.
And Vinny, it's important to understand, if I could just dovetail onto David's point.
We have about 30 seconds, that's all. I'm sorry.
I can do it in 15. The prosecution's entire theory is John O'Keefe stepped out of the passenger side of the vehicle, he was hit, and he was disabled. Done. There would be no movement from his cell phone. You're exactly right. The Apple Health data is extraordinarily precise. It shows him taking 88 steps. It also shows him going up and down 3 flights of stairs at the 3-story house, and then taking 30 steps after that at 12:31 a.m. At or after 12:31 a.m. If he stepped out of the car and was hit, the Apple Health data would show absolutely nothing whatsoever. When the prosecution is asked by David and myself, explain that, they simply say, we have no explanation.
All right.
It can't be relied on. Every time they don't like an answer, they say it can't be relied on.
Alan Jackson, David Yannetti, I know you're super busy. We really appreciate your time tonight, giving us much more insight into this case, and hopefully we'll speak again.
It's an important case, Vinny. Thanks so much for the time.
Absolutely. All right. Whew. Up next, folks, we're gonna get an independent opinion on all of this. We're gonna bring in one of Massachusetts' finest attorneys and legal minds next.
These are the cases that captivated the world.
Didn't keep my life straight.
That demanded our attention.
They were killed by their own children.
That challenged the legal system and ourselves.
How in the world can a mother wait 30 days before reporting her child missing?
These are the trials that became legendary. And now you can relive them all in one place. Court TV Legendary Trials. Go to courttv.com/legendary trials to find out how to watch.
This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life. Yeah. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Okay, so this hour we've heard from Turtle Boy, who, along with his followers, believes that Karen Read is falsely accused. The attorneys who tried to laid out some very compelling evidence. So I wanted to bring in like an independent mind to take a look at all this. And you're in Massachusetts, there's only one place you go. Let's bring in our guest. Joining us in Boston, Massachusetts, former child abuse prosecutor, law professor at New England Law, Wendy Murphy, back with us. Wendy, great to see you.
You too, Vinny.
All right, so what's happening there in Canton, Massachusetts, in Dedham, Massachusetts? What are your thoughts about this? Is it possible that there is some sort of a police cover-up here?
You know, that's the big question, and I know how the issue has been framed. Either there's a big cover-up or she's guilty of murder, and I kind of come down in the middle. You know, my feeling from the beginning of this case was that she probably did hit him. He banged his head on the driveway. She didn't plan to hit him. She didn't want to kill him, and that he was covered by the snow, which is why no one found him until the following day. And it was really the fact that police overcharged her with murder. I don't think don't think any jury will ever find her guilty of murder, period, because I don't think anybody will be able to prove that she wanted to kill him. But she's charged with murder. And I think when a defense attorney gets involved in a case where it appears their client has been overcharged, and likely overcharged because this was a cop, and the cops have a very nice relationship with the district attorney who gets to decide what the charges are. If there's an overcharge, and this is a serious overcharge, this is life behind bars, second-degree murder overcharge. If she in fact committed, at best, manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, because she was under the influence and she, I think, did accidentally kill him, then the question is, why is the defense characterizing this as a conspiracy by the police? And my sense of that, just tactically speaking, is that the defense wants to use their strategy, their theory of this was a murder by one of the other people at the house, and they're trying to cover it up and pin it on her. But the real theory, I think, here is that if they can even get the judge to buy into the idea that it might have been someone in the house, then they're going to get access to all the police files, all their employment files, all their disciplinary records. And that's going to give Karen Read leverage, the leverage she needs to pressure the prosecution to lower the charge to manslaughter, to give her some kind of not only lower charge, but ultimately a much lesser punishment. So that's really what I think is going on here. There was an overcharge, and in a sense, there's an over defense. Where we're hearing things about police conspiracies.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't be on more polar opposite sides here. So let me ask you this: what's if we do go to trial, right? And I always prepare for that moment here at Court TV. What do you think the temperature is in Norfolk County, in Dedham, Massachusetts, for jurors to think that their police, are capable of this?
Well, there's a lot of support for Karen Read here, and whether people think she's just overcharged or outright innocent and had nothing to do with it, there's a lot of support for Karen Read. And here's the problem. When the prosecution overcharges someone and they blame the police for why there's an overcharge, there's a real risk that the jury's going to come back and punish the prosecution for doing that. If the jury thinks this was an accident, they're going to be angry that she was charged with murder, and that could translate into an outright not guilty as a way of, bringing democracy to the case, punishing the government for overdoing it. I can see that happening. And there's no question all the potential jurors, which will have to come from that area of Massachusetts, are watching this. They're watching all the support for Karen Read mount. And yeah, I mean, this is a country where the climate around support for police is unfortunately not good. I don't support that. I think we need good cops. And it's really, unfortunate that that is tainting this case to some extent. But I would say this: the defense has the upper hand, not because people think Karen Read is innocent, but because they think she's being unjustly prosecuted.
Kind of like Sacco and Vanzetti. Anyway, that's another story for another time. Wendy Murphy, great to see you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it as always.